We begin tonight, as we have for most nights over the past several weeks, at the courthouse, but not this time to cover a presidential candidate. Instead, it's for the president's son. We'll go to Wilmington, Delaware in a moment. And speaking of that other trial that we had been covering for all those weeks, we have new CBS News polling and reaction from voters after the presumptive Republican nominee for president, Donald Trump, was convicted of 34 felony counts. Our polling unit is tracking Americans' views of the justice system in the wake of Trump's conviction. More on that from our data desk in a moment. But we begin now with Robert Costa and Scott MacFarlane joining us now and covering all ends of this. Scott, I want to start with you because you are in Wilmington, and we understand that a jury has just been seated. We have a jury of 12 and 4 alternates being decided to serve in this case. How did both sides go about choosing the jury here?
Took the full day, Caitlin, to find a jury here. It's 6 men, 6 women with 4 alternates, and that sets them up for opening arguments tomorrow in a trial that could last an estimated 1 to 2 weeks, and it involves the first ever criminal charges against a president's son that go to a criminal trial. Some of the questions are traditional for jury selection. Do you know the lawyers? Do you know the parties involved? Are you a lawyer? Have you had issues with this court? And some of the questions were also peculiar or particular to this case. The one that seemed to be the most resonant with the respective jurors was question number 27. Do you believe the Department of Justice and law enforcement bring cases for political reasons? Prospective jurors who answered yes to that question were brought before the judge to answer further questions from her and further questions from the lawyers. There were some who believed that, yes, the Department of Justice has political motivations, and some of them referenced Donald Trump's conviction in Manhattan last week. One of the final jurors who was removed at a defense attorney or a prosecutor's recommendation was somebody who says she believes the Department of Justice brings cases to victimize the Bidens and Democrats. This was a resonant issue and a transcendent issue through this day. But they found 16 people with whom both sides are comfortable, 16 people with whom they will plow forward with opening arguments tomorrow morning.
And Bob, I know you have just returned from covering all those weeks of the Trump trial, but I want to ask about this one. Does this have any impact on the president's reelection campaign?
Speaking to sources close to President Biden, it's clear that he views this as a personal family matter. He issued a statement in support of his son earlier today, but his campaign is focused on the economy and raising issues about former President Trump's conduct, not specifically about this trial, though his campaign did make a lone appearance in Lower Manhattan. It's about the broader case that President Biden believes he's more of an advocate for American democracy, and in his argument, Trump's a threat to American democracy. So that's what you're hearing from the Biden campaign. That's what you're hearing from President Biden. Not any sort of interest or action that wades into the Hunter Biden situation beyond solidarity from the First Lady, Jill Biden, by appearing at the courthouse today.
And you mentioned Jill Biden. And Scott, we actually have some video of Jill Biden leaving the courtroom today. Scott, what has the Biden team said about this trial publicly? And also, can you give us a sense of, if you were able to get a glimpse of Hunter Biden and kind of assess his demeanor, kind of how he was responding to this jury selection?
And the Biden legal team has indicated what they're going to argue at trial in their pretrial filings. The charges here allege that Hunter Biden knowingly bought a gun in 2018, filled out the paperwork, and did not mark down that he was a user or an addict of drugs. A federal felony, according to prosecutors. What the Biden team is poised to argue, what they have said in their pretrial filings, is that Hunter Biden was in rehab, trying to recuperate during that period of time in which he bought the gun, indicating that, whether you're a drug user is not a scientific idea, maybe more open to people's interpretation or their opinions. That's where they're headed with this argument. But they have to wait until the prosecutors reveal their case first. When Jill Biden arrived here, the First Lady, on her 73rd birthday, no less, she sat right behind Hunter Biden in the courtroom for this jury selection process. Hunter Biden didn't show much expression during this process, but I can tell you, having been there outside the room, he and his defense attorneys called for a last-minute private room huddle at the very end of jury selection so they can make a decision after meeting privately as to who to strike with their final few jury strikes. He was engaged in that meeting. He seemed to be engaged with the attorneys through the process today. He will be a listener only, starting tomorrow when the prosecution begins questioning its witnesses.
And Bob, how has the Trump campaign or Republicans more broadly been responding to this trial? I mean, they've used Hunter Biden or tried to use Hunter Biden as a foil throughout the former president's legal troubles. And of course, Hunter Biden will have another trial date later in the fall. But how are they kind of using today, especially after the conviction last week?
Across the Republican Party, there's a lot of interest in supporting former President Trump, and his campaign has raised tens of millions of dollars since the verdict came last week in New York. At the same time, former President Trump has brought up Hunter Biden on the campaign trail from time to time. There was that refrain, "Where's Hunter?" over a year ago. They kind of have taunted Hunter Biden and his problems over the years. But you don't see this as a focus for the Trump campaign. Even for them, they politically and sometimes even personally very much dislike President Biden and his family. But this is a family matter. And among my top Republican sources on the strategy side, they don't see much political upside to bringing a spotlight onto Hunter Biden day in, day out. It's not like it's going to win over a new voter by talking about Hunter Biden using a firearm or purchasing a firearm, talking about his addiction. Of most interest to them is talking about Hunter Biden's laptop and how they believe that might have influenced or not influenced the election enough previously. But when it comes to this particular case, there's not a lot of Republican interest, even from the Trump campaign, in bringing it to the fore of the campaign.
Yeah, interesting to see how Republicans are reacting to the conviction. I want to play a little bit of Doug Burgum, who was on Face the Nation over the weekend. Here's what he had to say.
So Americans are going to come back to the issues that affect them because this trial outcome doesn't affect them. Their inflation affects them.
It does.
So, Bob, Doug Burgum, obviously a close ally of former President Trump, rumored to be a potential running mate for former President Trump, was a presidential candidate himself. But it was interesting to hear him there because, saying that voters care about other things. But at the same time, as you mentioned, the campaign has raised a lot of money off this convention. So to the extent that we can, just, a few days removed from this conviction, how do you see this conviction playing out politically at this point?
Based on my conversations with people close to Trump, Governor Burgum is near the top of the list to be Trump's running mate. And it's because he threads the needle. Inside the Trump wing, he's somewhat popular. He's also popular, or at least respected, among traditional Republicans. He's not exactly a well-known name yet fully, even inside the Republican Party. But he is someone who is trying to bring the issues of the Trump campaign to be part of the conversation. And for Trump, who has relied so much on his own grievances to fuel his campaign, having someone like Burgum out there being a different kind of presenter, talking about issues in a different sort of way, that provides value to the Trump campaign. And that's why Burgum continues to rise.
Interesting. And Scott, we've seen, Republicans come to the former president's defense, but we've also seen over the past couple of years almost them really kind of focus on Hunter Biden here. How are Republicans, you cover Congress so well, how are Republicans reacting to today and the trial to come later this fall?
There are some House Republicans who are taking some indirect credit for the fact this trial's happening. You'll recall, Caitlin and Bob, this case was nearly pleaded out last year. They were on the precipice, at the altar for a plea agreement, and the judge, the same judge overseeing this trial, didn't believe both sides were on the same page, and she blew that plea agreement up. And that set us on a trajectory towards trial now. But there were House Republican committees who filed in that case with concerns about what they heard about the plea deal. And of course, Caitlin, Hunter Biden has been a common word or words to be heard in Republican House committee hearing rooms over the past few months. They've questioned his business dealings. They've alleged that he has traded off the family name to enrich himself, something he has denied. And they are now watching from a distance, from 2 hours away, as Hunter Biden goes on trial with opening arguments tomorrow morning.
All right, and our court coverage continues. Bob Costa and Scott MacFarlane, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And how is former